All right, all right. Welcome. Happy April. It's finally here. Still chilly here and extraordinarily windy. But today I wanted to talk about the reality of stress and menopause. Sometimes we have never really experienced continual stress. Other times, or other of us, I should say, have been experiencing stress, worry, anxiety, whatever it may be, since we were young kids. May or may not have ever been diagnosed as a diagnosis, but at some point in everybody's lifetime, we experience stress, particularly as we are approaching menopause, and our levels of estrogen and progesterone are starting to decline. Sometimes it affects us in hot flashes. Sometimes it affects us with night sweats. Some of us have mood swings, but a good majority of women experience anxiety and depression. Estrogen plays a key role in regulating the stress response system in the body. It actually helps reduce the production of the hormone called cortisol that is released in response to stress. And as the estrogen levels start to decline during menopause, our cortisol levels may actually increase, and that can lead to higher levels of stress and anxiety. So physically, there are things that are going on with our bodies, with our hormones that may cause stress and anxiety. Progesterone is also another hormone that plays a role in regulating the stress response system. Progesterone actually has a calming effect on the brain and can help reduce feelings of anxiety. And as progesterone levels also tend to decline during menopause, women may experience more severe symptoms of anxiety and might just find it more difficult to cope with stress. In addition to the hormonal and physical changes that are going on during this time with our bodies, it's also a time of major life transition, right? So all of these life changes, such as potential death in the family, our aging parents, teenagers, or even just having to adjust to being an empty nester. We may have lost a close friend. We may have lost a spouse, a parent. So there may be feelings of loss and grief. And also just uncertainty about the future. And all of these things can contribute to elevated levels of stress. So it is a physiological response that can occur in the body with hormone changes, but also just due to the nature of the things that are going on in our lives during this time. I am actually going to screen share part of the class that I'm taking, menopause health and fitness specialist course. So I can talk a little bit more intelligently. Sorry about that. One of these days I'll remember to silence everything. That's my neighbor probably asking me if I want to go for a walk, which I would love to. Anyway, I'm going to share my screen here. And just talk about menopause in general, and a little more in depth about stress and stress response. So menopause is the point in time exactly 1 year following the final menstrual period. And it typically occurs between the ages of 40 and 58. Average age of the natural onset is 52 years. However, there is early onset and there's also late onset. So you typically tend to follow your mom and your sisters if they are older than you. I'm pretty sure that me, my sisters, and my mom were all within like a year of each other. And just to kind of share some statistics, 64 million women age 50 plus right now in 2020. So that is probably why we are seeing such a frequency in discussion about menopause. And I think also as women, we are becoming more vocal and more visible. So all good things. Overall life expectancy for US women in 2020 was 80.5. But this was interesting to me. Many US women will spend 40% of their lives post-menopause. So I think that that is a pretty good portion of our lives to have to spend and try to figure out how to live optimally during that time. Just some key points. Premenopause is when you are having regular cycles, fertility, normal hormone markers. Perimenopause is when things start to change. So that's around age 45 to 52. And then again, menopause is the absence of our periods. And that's really when we see significant changes in our bodies and our hormones. And that is typically average age 53 plus. How do you tell? Most often it's through age and your symptoms, right? And obviously your menstrual cycle history. But it's very difficult to tell with blood tests, although there are tests out there. Your hormones are fluctuating so much throughout the day that it's really difficult to decipher just by your blood levels alone. So why anxiety and depression? And there's from the SWAN studies, what we have learned that anxiety and depression tend to increase during late perimenopause and postmenopause. And again, I mentioned the life stressors earlier, but there is a higher risk of clinical anxiety and depression, and just some other stats on this slide that are interesting. The stress response. So your hormones are very complicated systems, and the stress response is one of them. So there is a hormonal response that is complex, but it does help the body respond to a threat or some kind of physical task. There is what's called the fight or flight response. And that's pretty much how our body reacts physically to a perceived threat of any kind. And that could be, even a perceived threat of hunger. It could be the perceived threat of falling, could be perceived threat of our country going to war. Any kind of perceived threat would attribute to that fight or flight response. Once the threat has been resolved, our cortisol levels tend to drop down to their baseline. But with ongoing / continual stress, that cascade of hormones does not ever get an opportunity to return to the baseline. And we've talked about stress, or I've talked about stress and sleep, and how the hormones usually tend to run in opposition. So when you are waking up in the morning, your cortisol levels should be the highest, and your serotonin levels should be their lowest. And then that reverses at the end of the day. And as you're going through your day, unless something happens to increase your stress levels, your cortisol should decrease. So that kind of helps you get to sleep. And then your serotonin increases. So that's kind of how that works. So cortisol is a hormone that is secreted by the adrenal glands, and it is the hormone that does play a major role in the stress response. And again, just to mention that ongoing stress results in chronic elevation of cortisol, and that chronic elevation of cortisol can be associated with elevated blood sugar, high blood pressure, low bone mass, decreased cognitive function, and also accelerated aging. So again, and that is chronic. Everybody has some stress in their life, obviously, but continual chronic stress will definitely result in some potential issues with your body and your, just your aging in general. Stress and the menopause experience. So the menopause transition is associated with physical and emotional stressors. We do tend to gain weight. There are physical changes. Everything starts to drop, sag, droop, whatever. We do have potential for sleep disruption, which can certainly enhance mood disruption. And again, the potential for depression and anxiety. And lastly, one more time, just to really hone in on the fact that there are life stressors at this point in our lives, revolving around aging parents, stress at work, children leaving home, potentially relationship strain. So these are all just real live situations that occur during this time in our lives. And we need to learn how to manage our stress in ways that are not toxic or more toxic to us and cause even additional stress on the body. And I will get into that in upcoming weeks, talk about, ways to manage stress, what works, different techniques. And I think next week, we are going to chat about, let me just find myself here. Pause. How stress causes weight gain. So that will be next week's topic. And then the following week, we'll be talking about ways to reduce stress. And then the last Tuesday in April, I'm actually going to hold like a 30 to 45-minute class, basically on stretching. We'll do a little breathing, but just a great way to end your day with a nice, what I call athletic stretch. A lot of people like to do yoga. That's fine too, but a great way to kind of bring those cortisol levels down if you're struggling with that and ease yourself into the evening is with a nice stretch and relaxation before you jump into bed. So that is all I had on tonight. I'm just going to pop in, see if anybody is watching. If you are watching this live, give me a hashtag live. If you are watching it on the replay, give me a hashtag replay. Doesn't look like too many people are out here right now. So just let me know. And one of these days I'll figure out good timing for everybody to jump on this call. Oh, Carolyn, do you have a question? You can take yourself off.
No, sorry, I hit I meant to respond that I was watching it live.
You were raising your hand. I thought you had a question.
Yeah, here I am.
Awesome. I don't see any questions out there, so I am going to stop the live stream.